Okay, here's my favorite feature on the OnePlus 10 Pro. It can charge from 0 to 100 in just about 30 minutes. It's not the fastest charging phone in the world, but that's pretty damn impressive. The OnePlus 10 Pro is finally here, and by here, I mean actually here in North America. It launched in China earlier this year, and after lots of hints and teasing, OnePlus is officially releasing its new flagship in the US. It's about time too, because we really need more high-end Android flagship phones here to challenge Samsung and Google. And that's what the 10 Pro is, a legitimate challenger. It has all the right features at a price that makes a lot more sense than last year's 9 and 9 Pro. It's also a sleek, grown-up device that feels like it has a personality all of its own. That's not to say that OnePlus has completely caught up to the big flagships. There's still room for improvement, especially in the camera department. But if you're looking for an Android alternative to the Galaxy S22 Plus or the Pixel 6 Pro, then you're in luck because OnePlus has arrived. Since the 10 Pro has been out for a while now in China, there's not much we don't already know about it spec-wise. But here's the recap. There's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor, 6.7-inch 1440p OLED with a smooth 120Hz refresh rate, a 5000 mAh battery, and 3 rear cameras including a 3x telephoto. That's all very flagshipy and nothing surprising. But the price is news. In the US, it costs $899 unlocked for a version with 128 gigs of storage and 8 gigs of RAM. That's $170 less than the 9 Pro cost last year, and it's right on par with the Pixel 6 Pro, and $100 less than the S22 Plus. That price also includes something you won't get from Samsung or Google these days, a charger. And not just any charger. In the US, the 10 Pro supports 65-watt charging, and this thing can take it from 0 to 100% in a little more than 30 minutes. That's not quite as fast as the 80-watt version sold in Europe and Asia, but either way, it's still impressive. There's also fast wireless charging up to 50 watts, but you'll have to buy a charger separately for that. OnePlus isn't that generous. The 10 Pro comes in this shimmery green color. There's also a black version, and it's a sophisticated looking phone. The camera bump takes up a lot of real estate, but it's slim with the sleek metallic finish that flows right into the side of the phone. I feel like I've seen that somewhere. Anyway, there's glass on the front and back, and even though it's a big phone, it's pretty slim, and it doesn't feel overly huge in my hand. The 10 Pro ships with Android 12, and OnePlus's version stands out as a little different from the rest of the Android competition. On Pixel phones, Android 12 is all about customizing the user interface to feel a little more personal, with color treatments that match your wallpaper. The 10 Pro offers some of this in this version of Android 12, but the results still have a little OnePlus flavor to them. You can sample colors from one of your photos for a stylish graphic wallpaper, or choose a clock widget with OnePlus's trademark red. It's a look that's a little less playful and a little more sophisticated and minimalist, which might be more appealing to some people. One feature with universal appeal is the 10 Pro's solid battery life. As a caveat, I haven't been able to test this phone on 5G. More on that in a bit. And that can have an impact on battery stamina. But I've been using the phone on high performance mode at full 1440 resolution, the always on display enabled, and I can get through a day of moderate use easily on a single charge. Even on a day of shooting some 4K video, using navigation, and spending most of my time on 4G instead of Wi-Fi, I can still get to the end of the day without dipping into the single digits. You can drain the battery with intensive tasks like gaming, but overall stamina feels above average, and if you do need a midday recharge, it'll be super quick. The 10 Pro uses a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset, which is this year's Android flagship processor of choice, unless you're Google and you just go make your own. OnePlus bought one off the shelf, and it makes the 10 Pro a highly capable device. It's not quite up there with the very fastest Android phones. I noticed the occasional stutter, and playing some games isn't quite as smooth as on the Galaxy S22 Plus. Overall though, it's flagship-worthy performance, and it keeps up well enough. And then there's 5G. In the US, it's a mixed bag, and it depends on your carrier. For starters, there's only sub 6 GHz, no super fast millimeter wave, and that's fine. The phone is also fully compatible with T-Mobile's low and mid-band 5G, but Beyond that, things get complicated. At the time we're recording this, the 10 Pro can't use Verizon's 5G network, but Oneplus says that's subject to change in the near future. If things play out like last year, the 10 Pro will probably get Verizon 5G very soon. But if you're on AT&T, I have some bad news. It's not compatible with that 5G network, and it doesn't appear that ever will be. And that's something to really consider if you're on AT&T. Just 1 or 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been a big deal to buy a phone that won't use 5G because it just wasn't very good. But with more spectrum coming online over the next few years, it's starting to actually get better, and it'll be a shame when the 10 Pro can't take advantage of it. The 5G story is kind of a mark against the 10 Pro's flagship contender status, and there's one more area where the phone can't quite match the competition: its camera system. The hardware is mostly similar to last year's models. There's a 48 megapixel main camera, a 50 megapixel ultrawide, an 8 megapixel 3.3 times telephoto, and an upgraded 32 megapixel selfie camera. The Hasselblad branding is back this year because of course it is. And this year Oneplus has added heat capture with 10-bit color, a new computational RAW mode, and a video mode with access to manual exposure settings. There's been some more tuning of image processing under the hood, but it's a camera system that's a lot like last year's. That's too bad because OnePlus already had some catching up to do. Photos in moderate indoor lighting sometimes look strangely overbrightened, and portrait mode shots are just okay. They're not as good as the Galaxy S22's, which is the new standard. The 10 Pro does fine in good lighting, both in video and still images. Lots of phones offer a low-res ultra-wide camera, and the 10 Pro's is definitely a cut above. If you want to get even more in the frame, you can use the 150-degree mode if you don't mind a little bit of distortion. Photos from the telephoto lens are sharp. I'm impressed with the level of detail it captured in the mural here. Even 10 times digital zoom looks okay, but stay away from 30 times digital zoom. Photos from the selfie cam look nice and balanced, and there's no overly aggressive skin smoothing to worry about. On the video side, you can shoot up to 8K 24p, and those clips look good, though there's a significant crop. In 1080 30p mode, you can turn on a feature called AI Highlight that does a good job of balancing out brightness in high contrast scenes without making things look too HDR-y. There's a 4K 120p mode that's fun for slow motion clips, and a fisheye mode for the ultra-wide that you can get creative with. But OnePlus has its work cut out to catch up with Samsung and Google, and the 10 Pro doesn't do much to close the gap. OnePlus is a long way from its beginnings as an upstart taking on the big brands with flagship specs at lower prices. With the 9 and 9 Pro, it made a statement that it was ready to be taken seriously as a legitimate alternative to Google and Samsung. Neither of those devices quite nailed it. The 9 was missing some standard flagship features like a stabilized main camera, and the 9 Pro felt overpriced. With the 10 Pro, OnePlus has sharpened its vision of a true flagship. The result is a polished device with a unique identity that's well priced. There's still some work to do, particularly on the camera, and it needs to figure out the AT&T thing. But there's no denying that this is a step in the right direction. The old OnePlus is gone, but the new OnePlus looks like a worthy challenger indeed. Thanks so much for watching. We have tons of great reviews on the channel now. If you don't want to hear about phones anymore, I highly recommend you go watch Victoria Song's review of the Peloton Tread. It's super fun. See ya.